So as the sands of time fall in the hourglass, as it were, okay, and you feel your schedule enclose around you like a dark shadow, and your hobby suffocates and atrophies in the corner. What do you do?
Chris is describing when you're in the hobby and then you either get married or have children or both. That's just a much darker way.
Hey guys, welcome to another Lords of War Games and Hobbies video. I'm Chris. This is Jay. If you're tuning in for the first time, we do videos like this a couple times a week, and we'd really appreciate it if you like and subscribe because that helps us out a ton. So Jay's the hero.
Do it now.
Don't put it off.
Today's topic is kind of how to navigate the very common thing, which is you've been in the hobby, and whether it doesn't matter what your situation is, whether you just work a lot or just have a hard time finding to do the hobby at home, or if you had more time before and now you don't because you have small children like Chris and I do. I don't know. I think we've discussed this probably before some time ago, and my only thing that I can give customers as an advice is you have to kind of look at it. I have my little analogy at the store. If you bought the minis and the products, it's like you bought the gym membership, and now you have to go. You have to go and do.
You actually have to go.
You have to go.
You have to go to the gym.
So it is. If you approach it in that, and other advice I've gotten over the years, it's like jogging. If you just do it a little bit, it doesn't. I think sometimes people have this idea that they need to like sit down, have this set up, and then take, it's all sprawling and perfectly neat and organized, and then they're going to sit down and it's going to be 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it is, and they're going to tinker away. And I think while even I romanticize about that, the reality is that's just not going to happen most of the time.
Sure. That's a good point. And I think like one thing that definitely can change is like you might have like expectations based on your previous like experience. And I think changing those expectations helps a lot, right? So like maybe instead of having like, I remember like when I was in my 20s and before kids, and my wife and I have different schedules. So like I'd have usually like a day to myself. And I used to just like literally paint for like 8 to 10 hours that day if I wanted to, right? Like, and I would get so much done, right? Mm-hmm. And I realize now that day is just gone. Like it's never coming back. It's a thing of the past.
Well, when you're 50 something,
kind of like you're gonna go really far in the future.
when kids are out of the house or whatever, maybe another 10 years.
Yeah, I won't have the stamina for that point though. But you can take a smaller version of that. Maybe your evening. Maybe there was you used to come home, make dinner, and then just do 4 to 5 hours of painting or hobbying and on your own kind of time. And maybe you can't do that anymore. Maybe it's 1 hour now. Right.
Less. And it is also that hour is probably competing with less, or what do you call it? Things that are potentially take even less committing to do. So watching TV, right. Playing a video game, crushing, I don't know, some videos on your phone or something. Like you just
playing on my phone, doom scrolling.
You're just doom scrolling.
Yeah.
And then I get it. You look at the time, you're like, I got to go to bed again or whatever. So.
And you're probably tireder than you were 10 years ago.
You're going to be more tired.
Especially if you have kids. Yeah,
the excuses are real. I don't want to belittle them. I think they're definitely real. But there is, like I said, if you really want to get somewhere, it really starts with that like little bit of like you have to kind of schedule it. You have to commit to doing it. It really is. It's going to sound like a self-help exercise thing. It's like only you can can do it type of thing. There's no secret magic ingredient. There's no. I really can't give you anything other than small tips like don't worry about trying to get a lot done. The other thing that makes it, I would say, extra difficult, and I like to also use the if you're trying to learn or play music, it has a similar thing where you're not usually good at it right away.
Yeah.
Or for that matter, you may never be really good at it. You have to kind of like it's that self contributing thing where if you don't do it a bit, then you get kind of rusty, and then every time you sit down again, you're spending time.
remembering,
like remembering, or even just tinkering with your setup. Like if you've got an instrument that needs tuning or something, you might literally lose 20 minutes like fiddling with that, and then you're like, oh, it's tuned now, and then you set it down. You're like, I'm good. 20 minutes past.
I'll extend that. I really like that music analogy because, like, as a person who fiddles on the guitar, I can relate to that, and I think it's, to me, I'll make the case of like, it is similar to like having your instrument in a case as well. Like there's an aspect of the hobby. I think it's like a bit of like a get out of your own way thing. So if this is something you really want to do, it needs to be accessible. So like if your instrument is in your in a case, like out, in your closet, or like even the act of like pulling it out, taking it out of like, these are extra steps. And it's kind of funny how like as humans, like that like psychological barrier of it not just being an easy like one grab it off a rack or something. And painting is no different. I think like obviously not everybody can have this like setup or whatever at home necessarily like we have here. But you can probably have at the very least a small little cutting mat with like your paints on it, a palette like this
big,
and if you can't keep it out, you can keep it in a bin,
a little tote bin,
that is like something you could take out in 4 seconds or something, like something you can really quickly pull out, because I think that's the key thing, right?
Well, I remember you used to do this. I don't know if you still do it. I remember you had a bunch of, I'm sure a lot of people own these like still little small TV tray tables.
Yep.
That are only like the size of a cutting mat.
Yeah. Oh man.
And I think you used to like do base coats on models while watching TV with your wife or whatever. Just something as small as like that. And that's the other advice, is like the step that you do on the models can be something as basic as like you're sitting there. So there are lots of tasks that you do with the minis that is like doesn't require a lot of brain power or that much focus. So you could be watching a show and you're just like maybe filing a little bit or filling some gaps or something. Like it's a low impact on your brain. You're just or like if we're doing base coats, it's like you're slamming a color everywhere or something. Neatness doesn't matter. So for sure, I think that again, it's all about like ticking off as many of these little things that could get in your way, having that space that you can set up really quickly. And
like you said, there is inevitably there is a discipline element to it, right? Like there's like anything in life that's extra or hard, it takes work, and on top of everything else in your life, you need that extra motivation to kind of really actually want to do it, right? Yeah. I mean, I like to separate too. Like there's going to be people like watching this that have never really like been particularly productive in the hobby. They might be newer, or they might have always struggled to get anything done. And then there's people in that situation where like they feel their hobby time shrinking over time, and like they're like, how do I find the time to do this in my ever busy life, right? I feel like the people in that second category are probably going to figure it out somehow, because they have been doing it before. They've been able to do it before. They've painted models. They've gotten stuff done, so they know they can do it. It's just a matter of finding the time, and that's probably a little easier than the whole other task. Whereas someone who has never really finished projects, because I hear this a lot of time from people that have like always struggled to paint models. They say, I don't have the time, or I have trouble finding the time. I think that's got a lot more to do with like your mindset, and try to and like you said, it's like choosing this hobby over other choices. I think ultimately that's the really challenging thing, right?
Yeah. If it's like competing with other things, is going to be tough. The other thing that works, and again, you can combine all these things. You don't have to try one and then try the next one or whatever. Is deadlines. This is another classic
super powerful
thing. Is you have something in the calendar. You sign up for it's like the gym membership thing. You sign up for that whatever it is, spin class or something, or some sort of class that you're like, oh, I paid money, I have to go to this class or whatever. It could be literally anything. You're paying a fee for something, and that's if you can create these situations that kind of like force you to like, oh, if I don't get it done, or if I don't go to the thing, it's a waste. And if you can create that's like that little bit of guilt is good, because it will kind of force you to. So deadlines could be things like if you're fortunate enough to have an LGS nearby, or a club that plays regularly, if they have whether there's a here we have, when we run a league, there's a small league fee, and then that goes to prizes, for example. So that right there, you're like, oh, I've signed up, I'm committing. if I don't go, I'm literally like messing up the league, because then the organizer has to scramble to find players, or you're taking games away from other players essentially by not.
Yeah.
That's why I always tell people when they sign up, I'm like, make sure you can actually come to these games. Like, this isn't a sign up and then
No.
and then
You're
off because you can't play.
You're making a commitment to other people.
You are, yeah. And it's not a team sport where you're also like, oh, there's 15 players on the team, and if I miss a game, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of a little more serious. So, and then it's not like the casual, Friday Night Magic, or again, where people roll in and just play. So if you sign up for tournaments or league play, and you can do these, you can try it, right? You can say, I'm going to sign up for one that's like, sometimes these things are in the calendar, like the stores or the TOs set them up like 6 weeks in advance, or 2 months even. Sign up for that one, and then be like, okay, I got to get this painted by then. So that can definitely work as well.
It's a bit like, I don't know, like for somebody that are watching that have ever done like education or training on like goal setting and stuff like that. It's not dissimilar to that with, you want setting, if you don't set goals in your life at all, sometimes, not everybody, but sometimes you can feel like, you're just like kind of coasting and not getting anywhere. And that could be in anything. That could be in your hobby. That could be with, playing a music instrument. That could be in your life with your job or something like that, right? So these little like things that we shoot for, I think are important. And I've always found personally that like, even if you don't hit the goal necessarily, you'll go further than you would have without it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And again, like, don't get us wrong. Like, it's work. It's going to be work. There's no way, like painting a single figure with no deadline is also quite liberating and fun. And that in itself that's probably the purest form, because you're kind of just like, you're just going. It's there's no one. You could take a year if you want or not, and if that's what you want to do, perfect. You'll probably be the happiest person. But if you're intending to like finish an army, it's going to be work. There's pain. There's going to be pain. It's
painting an army is pain. Yeah.
It's like
there's a hurt element to it for sure.
Like, it's like trying to be a strong man or something, or whatever. Anywhere where you're trying to be an athlete or competing, like it's mostly work. It's just painting a bit, grinding away. Chris and I have been through countless of armies and challenges and things where there's weeks where you're just like, I hate this, but that's the only way to get there. There's unless the only other way I guess you could get there, and it won't be so painful, as if you manage to stay to that like irregular, where you do paint a little every day, and you have, I think a small percentage of people can do that.
Yeah.
Like, there's the odd freak that can sit and paint the same dudes for even years just to get to the final result. But,
for sure.
But for most of us, I think you need like that little bit of structure, and then the other thing is the expectation setting, where you have to kind of also be okay with like the results. Again, there's that graph of like, if you want the models in the army to look this like extreme quality level, then the time is going to be way up and the work is going to be way higher. So I find, especially if it's your first army, you need to be like worried less about the quality and more about just getting there. I think even now, however many armies I've painted 20 years in, I think Chris will vouch for the same way. Like, the armies I paint now are still better than ones I painted, even last year. So like, that progression will never end. So you have to kind of get out of your mind this like, oh, I'm going to paint this perfect army. It's just it's not going to happen. And so I think there's that. So I've learned to dial down some of the steps in quality, and for my own mental sake, to help me get there.
Yeah, I think like perfectionism is just it really is just a psychological barrier to doing like anything, right? It just cripples you.
Look, all those guys, all those crazy Instagram painters, the guys you see, the Angels, the whatever, the Sergios, all these guys, any of these Golden Demon painters, they make on the video they're just like, oh, the guy just bangs it out, look how good it is or whatever. But like, often the guy might spend hundreds of hours that you don't get to see. They just got to fast clip it for you.
Sure.
And secondly, they've probably painted thousands of minis. So that, again, it's someone who's like so good at their craft that like the they're making no mistakes. The brush is always loaded perfectly. They're so efficient with their brush strokes that they don't make those, they're not requiring so many steps to get to the result. It's like our buddy John's like that. He's just like get a little bit, load his paint perfectly on the brush and just do like one stroke, and you're like, that looks incredible or whatever. And it's pure just hours into that, muscle memory.
Yeah.
So.
And a fundamental knowledge, like, I think that ultimately remembering that, like, some people, like, we're not artists. Mm-mm. We're amateurs that just got into this as like a hobby. Mm-hmm. Whereas our friend John, who also has a YouTube channel, Jonathan Ho, mm-hmm. He's an artist, like a trained professional artist. Mm-hmm. So like, it's funny because we all come together in the hobby and we're doing it together, but like you have to also acknowledge that some people are just going to have more skills than you and always will have more skills than you, and that's okay. It doesn't take anything away from what you're capable of doing. It's like focus on what your personal best can be and see that get better all the time and try to ignore what other people.
It's the idea of
more
like
self-help stuff.
Loving a sport.
Yeah.
Sure. Like I play soccer, but I've never had that idea that I'm going to do, or like I don't get mad. Like I'll still love watching professional soccer on TV.
Yeah,
I don't get mad that guy's so good or whatever. Like I just appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting there at home sulking though. I can't kick the ball as well as he can. Like I'm just going to enjoy watching the art in front of me, right? So you have to think of it the same way. And I would say in the art thing with the minis is you would do best to like harness those guys for some of the ideas that they provide, but don't bother. Like you're getting the most curated. That's the Instagram problem.
It's like boobs and butts, right? It's boobs and butts. I think that's the best way to think about it. If you're gonna let that ruin your day, then I think you're.
So that's probably the other small thing. Is just forget about that. Just work on your own minis. You have to be happy with what you can produce, and don't be too self-conscious because most people are happy to just get them there and most minis these days are so good. Like again, if you're a Warhammer player, the miniatures are so damn good that if you just color them in, they'll look great. And
put a shade on them or something.
They really don't need much more.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're made that way on purpose.
Yeah.
That's why they have so many silly little details, little bobbins and knickknacks, and they're made to be just like. I think the Space Marine box art is my favorite because it's just literally he's just edge highlighted really well. Mm-hmm. People always look at them, and like if you look at an intercessor on a box, he's not, there's no zenithal airbrush nonsense. There's just nothing. He's just solid color with immaculate edge highlighting. So what they're doing is letting the mini, the sculpt do all of the talking,
all of the work. Yeah. So it's very confident.
Yeah, it is very confident. Yeah, well, when you make the best minis, you get to do that. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I have any other tips and tricks, but just paint every day. Try to.
Yeah, I mean that ultimately, whatever time you can give, just make sure that you're using that time, setting the expectations to the right level. If you've never finished models before, like Jay said, consider doing something that's very simple, just to get over the hill for the first time. Like there's nothing wrong with contrast paints or speed paints or express colors.
Whatever tools you need.
Use the tools that you need to use. Get help too. Like if you have a friend that can help you or a local hobby shop that would teach painting. It's funny. I tell probably like 15 people, 20 people a week, please come and paint with me.
Come and paint with us. Yeah.
I've been doing this for 30 years and have won plenty of awards, and I want to help you for free. And so few people take me up on it.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
it's kind of wild.
Yeah, we have. So I know one of these days maybe I'll do another tour shot of the store. But we're sitting at we have a purpose-built paint table with lighting, and it's literally here for people to come and sit. And it is a bit of a cheers environment. People will come throughout the week, and it's extremely powerful. The group of guys that do come and regularly do it, like you see them finish armies and finish models
and get so much better, so much faster.
Because they're here. Yeah. They're here. They're painting. And I used to do this a lot. I would go when Chris would manage a Games Workshop, and I wasn't a GW employee anymore. I would go visit his store, and I would my Saturday would be or whatever, a chunk of my Saturday would be like, okay, I'm going to the store. I'm going to paint. So, which was back to my gym thing. It's like I went to do that. Yeah. And because I got on the subway, with all my crap, got there. I'm like, I'm gonna sit and get to work.
Kind of have to, right?
Like, why would I go all the way here? I could do this at home, but because I forced myself to go, then I would make sure that I got some steps done in between. So the first army is the hardest one.
Yeah.
Is that by definitely once you get, like, I've seen it so many times, finish that first army. Now you have one that's like on the shelf that you can admire or break out and play with, and then the next one or the subsequent projects are you don't have that like thing at the back of your head because you've been there, you've done it, you've gotten there. So it does get easier. The
cool thing is though, and this is just like the gym analogy thing, is like the beginner gains are real, right? Like you can gain so much ability so fast in the beginning, and then it just starts to get way harder to improve later on because there's you reach a certain point again.
These savage plateaus.
Plateaus are real. So that's the cool thing about and the exciting thing about being new or you haven't painted that much. Man, you can really get better really fast if you apply yourself for sure. Yeah. Well, hopefully that helps. In typical Lords of War fashion, we rambled a lot, but I think we hit some good points there. If you like these kind of videos, we also have a Patreon set up where you can make suggestions for video topics. We take a couple of those a month, and it just helps us support this and says, hey, Chris and Jay, spend more time making videos, less time running your shop.
Right.
And the more money Patreon makes, the more we have to listen, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Until next time, guys, thanks for watching.
Thanks, bye.
Take care.